Hi, it's your favorite startup founder, Sydney Madison Prescott, and welcome to Mirror Mirror, a startup founder's peek behind the mirror. Great to have you here and can't wait for you to hear the latest episode. Hi there. So, I wanted to join you today and talk a little bit about my decision to start working on my applications for my PhD. Let's start with a little bit about my academic background. So, I did really well in high school, had no idea what I wanted to be or do once I graduated. Um, I came from a very abusive, maladaptive household, so I didn't have any guidance in terms of even going to college. The only thing that I was told is once I graduated from high school, I would have nowhere else to live and I would have to leave. So I knew the entire time basically that I knew from a very young age, looking at the abuse and the dynamic in my home, that and the poverty, that the only way that I was ever going to be anything is with my mind. Like, I knew that. I had nothing else. Like, I knew that, I'm coming from a family that I have no financial support, I have no emotional support. There was no spirituality in the home, so there was nothing. There was nothing of substance that I could take with me, per se. And so, because of that, even when I was a little kid, I knew, like, okay, I'm smarter than most people, and that's gonna be what gets me out of this being poverty. And so I took that very seriously. To this day, I think it's just such a blessing. I have no idea on planet Earth how I was able to finish high school and graduate and make good grades given what I was going through at home. That's another episode, but pretty much every single day there was some sort of emotional or physical abuse going on. And I'm not kidding. I mean, every single day of my life when I was growing up, all the way from being a little kid all the way until I graduated high school and left the abusive home. So it was just a huge thing for me that I was able to somehow, by the grace of God, get the grades that I needed to be able to get out of there. I had really good grades, and I won a lot of awards in school. I was in advanced placement. I tested out of regular elementary school and went to a school for high achievers, a magnet school, when I was a little kid. So I was really smart, and unfortunately, because I didn't have any financial support or emotional support, my pathway to college was limited. Looking back in hindsight, I should have gone to an Ivy League school for sure. Like, I had the grades, the ambition, the mind, I still have it. But unfortunately, I didn't even have help doing my college applications. I didn't have the ability to even prep for the SAT, the ACT. I took the SAT blind with no prep, no nothing, and made a score good enough to get into college. And I only took it once, which is in the middle of being constantly abused, which again I just can't believe it. Looking back, I'm like, wow, girl, like, you did that. But so I took the SAT, no prep, one time, made a high enough score to get into the only school that I applied to, because I didn't have enough money, and I didn't know about fee waivers, and I didn't have any support or any help. I actually was yelled at when I asked about getting help with college applications in my home. So at that point, and I was told, and I wasn't working because I was 15 at the time. So I was just told that I could only apply to one college. That's what I was told. So I applied to one university, and I got in. Again, by the grace of God. And that one university was Georgia State University. Which is a research institution, which dictated my path, my academic path, which is really amazing. And it's very serendipitous, but nothing is by luck, by random. So I got into Georgia State University. I still struggled because I did not have adequate financial aid. I did not have any support whatsoever. I was told to never ask for financial support, anything, from the abusive home that I had come up from. So at 17, I went to college with no money, no support. I lived in the dorms. Everybody around me had a meal plan. Everybody around me was buying groceries. I'll never forget, the only thing that I had was 1 gallon of milk, 1 box of cereal, and a stick of butter in the fridge. And I really struggled emotionally, psychologically, being around other people where their parents would come to see them every weekend. They would bring them food. They would take them grocery shopping during the week. And I had nothing. I started working at a department store. I started working at Macy's. And that was able, and I was also going to school full time, but that was able to get me at least a little bit of money so that I could buy food. And I would usually buy things like ramen noodles and cans of tuna, things, and rice, like things that I could stretch out over time and make work throughout the week, because I wasn't making a lot of money, obviously, like working as in retail. And that got me through. And so during one of the classes that I took was actually an introduction to philosophy is what I took. And I took it as an elective because I wanted to major in international business, and I eventually wanted to go to law school. That was my original path. So I took, during that time, I took a course in Introduction to Philosophy. I had no idea what it entailed outside of, you get your little summary of what the course is going to be about. But I felt like it was interesting and I wanted to take it. And little did I know that was going to dictate my path in life. So I took that course as an elective, and I did really well. And it was all about, like, they introduced us to what is the structure of a proper argument, what is logic, what are logical fallacies. We would do things where we would break down arguments so that you understand the different components of an argument, which tells you whether or not the argument is logical. Critical thinking skills, skills that I still use to this day. And in that course, I loved the course. It was an elective for me, but I made an A. And I got an email after I took the course, and I was told that it was a high fail course. I think they said over like 70%, 75% of people that took that course typically failed. And I think I made an A+. So the head of the Department of Philosophy emailed me and asked to meet me. And I was like, I don't know what this is. I don't know what's going on. But I was like, sure, always say yes. That's a big mindset that I have. And one of my personal mantras is always say yes to any opportunity that makes sense, that's not going to harm you or harm someone else. So I said yes. And when I said yes to that opportunity, I met with the department chair of the philosophy department, and he talked to me about potentially majoring in philosophy. And he talked to me about how philosophy majors score higher on the LSAT than anyone else, any other majors, I should say. How philosophy majors also do really well in the business world. And just basically because philosophy is all about a high amount of critical thinking, more so than the average person, being able to solidify your reasoning abilities, whether it's through reading comprehension, whether it's through writing, but being able to do that. And then also being able to really break down really complex concepts in a way that anyone can understand them. And that's also helped me in the business world a lot, because that's why I can explain really complex engineering things in a very simple manner, because I learned that through philosophy. So the philosophy chair asked me, told me all about, why I should switch to be a philosophy major, and he sold me on it. And I had no idea what it entailed. He broke down, of course, like, here's the different courses you would take, here's the path you would take. You could still do pre-law concentration, and you would just switch to being a philosophy major. And he sold me on it, and I switched my major. So I switched my major officially to philosophy with a pre-law concentration and a double minor in political science and ethics. And with that, my academic career was made. I began to really flourish, and I realized that I had been a philosopher my entire life because I was always questioning the status quo, always asking why. And everybody hated me for that. Like, I would always question norms. I would always question traditions. I would always say, why? Anything that someone said. I would call out illogical things. And I didn't know when I was a kid and a teenager, but that was the basis of what it means to be a philosopher, which is to think critically about the world around you and to ask probing questions that no one else is asking. And you're doing that because you want to really figure out the essence of not only what it means to be human, but what it means to interact with other human beings, what it means to create systems that other human beings will interact with, and also what it means to build societies, interact in societies, and how societies impact individuals and vice versa, how individuals impact society. So there's so much that goes into that. And it is a very, I will say, proudly nerdy, it's a very nerdy, I'll say major, a very nerdy subject area. It's very dense. It's highly intellectual, which is why most people fail out of introduction to philosophy classes, let alone why they would never major in philosophy, because it's freaking hard. Like, it's really hard. You start getting into metaphysics, you start getting into philosophy of mind, you start getting, I mean, it starts getting so incredibly, I'll say intellectually taxing that it's like not even funny. But I loved it. Like, I soaked it up like water to a sponge. And I ended up, because I was also in the honors college, and the honors college was for high achievers in Georgia State University. You could apply to get into the honors college. And what it meant is basically you would have additional assignments that you had to complete, additional, we would have seminars that we have to go to, additional readings that you have to do, additional projects. You would have higher standards that you had to meet in your classes. So it was akin to like advanced placement in high school, but think about it as it was basically honors college and university. So I was in the honors college, so most of my philosophy classes were insane. Like, we were taking like graduate level philosophy at an undergraduate level because I was taking the honors philosophy level classes. And I really thrived. It changed my life. I cannot say this enough. Like, philosophy absolutely changed my life. And during that time, I decided that I wanted to write a thesis, because in the honors college, you could graduate with honors, you could graduate with advanced honors, or you could graduate with research honors. And me being the consummate high achiever, I wanted to graduate with honors, advanced honors, and research honors. Because that's the type A high achiever that I am. So I set out to do that. And a big part of that is you have to take pretty much all of the honors level classes in all of the courses that you took. You had to do, there were additional stipulations that you had to do. And for research honors specifically, you had to write a thesis, and you had to have, and it was truly like a graduate thesis. The only difference is there wasn't a full panel in a defense, but it was a full on, I took 2 years to research. I wrote my thesis on parental licensing and the equalization of opportunity. It is called the Cerebus, Parental Licensing and the Equalization of Opportunity. You can Google it, find it under my name, Sydney Madison Prescott. I did win an award for it. It won the best research paper or project at Georgia State University, which is awesome. And it changed my life writing that paper and research. And the crazy thing is, it made me realize that I love research, which I had no idea. I would have never known that I love research if I had not gone, two things, if I had not gone to a research institution, and if I had not decided that I wanted to write a thesis, an undergraduate thesis. Those two things changed my life because they enabled me to dive into research, learn research methods, and realize that I love research. There's something about diving into the subject matter in that way. It's very intense. You're scrutinizing so many different academic sources. You're going way back, sometimes to the source of, where was this conceptualized, like this topic that I'm researching. Why was it conceptualized? Who conceptualized it? What usage did it have in the past? What use does it have now? It's crazy. And it's very nerdy in a good way. I use nerdy in a positive way, not in a negative way. So when you hear me say nerdy, just trust me. It means like, yeah, I'm that bitch. Because if you're a nerd, yes, you are that bitch. Okay. You know your shit. So it's a very nerdy like thing to do, to be like, I love research, but I do, and it's great. It teaches you so much about yourself. It teaches you so much about perseverance. It teaches you so much about fallacies and why it's important. Like when people make statements, blanket statements, and there is no empirical evidence, meaning tangible evidence to solidify the statements that they're making, why that is problematic. It's just such a cool thing to go through life and to have the ability to do research. Most people during their lifetime will not do it. It is something that is highly academic, and people will hate on it and say, oh, the Ivy Tower. But I'm here to tell you, coming from a family unit that did not prioritize education, that did not prioritize academic, excellence, that was basically steeped in abject poverty, it changed my life to really lean on my intellectual capacities and to grow and nurture my intellectual capabilities without feeling as if I didn't want to do it because it would make me seem like a nerd or it would make me feel like a weirdo. I used to feel like that when I was a kid, but I realized that my intellect was the way out of the poverty that I was born into. And I realized that I basically didn't have a choice. Like, I didn't have a choice to be like, I'm not really that smart, like, which is what society teaches women and girls to do. It teaches us to placate men and to play down our IQ levels because men don't like women that are smarter, or boys don't like girls that are smarter than they are. Men don't like women that are smarter than they are. And throughout my life, I began to realize I don't care that men think that, oh, it's not sexy if you're smart, or, oh, you can be smart, but you can't be smarter than me. I don't care. I am more than likely smarter than most men that I meet. And I say that as I carry that as a badge of honor with the S on my chest, like freaking Superman, because yes, I'm probably smarter than your man. I'm probably smarter than most men that you meet. And you know what? That's an honorable thing to be, especially as a woman living in a patriarchal society that teaches us that we are supposed to dumb ourselves down and act like we don't have the intellect that we were born with as a blessing. So for me, it's always been a sense of pride to say, I am smart. I don't just say, I'm smart, and that's it. I nurture my intellect on a daily basis. I read constantly. Even when I was a kid, I would finish multiple books, hundreds of pages every single day. And it meant a lot to me to dive into that part of me, the intellectual part of me. And it still does today. And that leads me to, when I graduated from Georgia State, I had so much passion for the topic that I was covering, which is it ethically permissible to interfere in the private sphere of this family by saying that parents must be required to have a license to raise children in order to prevent child maltreatment and thus advance the potential equalization of opportunity for all individuals. Basically saying, if you want to equalize opportunity for people, you have to start early in their lives. Typically, the interventions that we have when we talk about the equalization of opportunity happen at different stages of someone's life, but they are typically very reactive, meaning we're trying to equalize opportunity too late. Something has already happened, and then we're like, oh, wait, we need to equalize the opportunity, the access to this resource or that resource. And I find that problematic. Why are we interceding in terms of trying to maximize someone's access to opportunity after something has happened to prevent them from having that access? Instead, why not say, we're going to set up your life in such a way where the pathway we set you on will help to equalize access to opportunity. And that pathway starts with ensuring that we minimize the possibility that you will be negatively impacted by child maltreatment, meaning anything from physical abuse to emotional abuse to neglect, all of those different things, because all of the empirical evidence shows that the things that happen in the home impacts the trajectory of someone's life, pretty much the entirety of their life. Everything, it really does. There's so much research around this, I can't even get into it, but the things that you go through in your childhood, the negative and the positive, they have an impact on the trajectory of your life, where you will go in terms of your education, in terms of the career you have, in terms of whether or not you end up getting married, whether or not you end up having children, where you live, the salary that you make, all of the things. And so that's where I said, I want to maximize access to opportunity, and I want that equalization of opportunity to start from birth. And in order to do that, the biggest thing that I can think of that would positively impact someone's trajectory is making sure that they do not have, they are less likely to be mistreated as a child. In terms of abuse from an abuse perspective. And so that's what I researched. I researched one, just how does childhood abuse impact an individual, psychologically, socioeconomically, physically, because there are things that actually happen from a cognitive perspective when you have been through physical abuse and trauma as a child. Those physical changes, again, stay with you your entire life, literally your entire life. And so I researched that. Then I researched from philosophy perspective, Hugh LaFollетte's Licensing Parents. So Licensing Parents is an essay that Hugh LaFollette, who is an American philosopher, wrote in the 1980s. I think it was 1980. And he was he conceptualized this argument of basically the premise of parental licensing as a way to mitigate harms, and his argument was, we license other activities because of the potential harm that those activities cause to others. Driving a car, having a medical license, having a cosmetology license to do it, because there is a potential for harm to someone else by you doing that activity. And his argument was, we license other things that have a potential to harm others. Why don't we license the activity of parenting, which is fundamentally something that can harm someone, because you are literally raising a human being who can die at any given point in time while you're raising them. It's a living human being that can't take care of itself for half of the time that it's living in your home. That the child is living in your home, they can't take care of themselves because they're a child, and they have no legal autonomy. They have no autonomy in the eyes of the law, in the eyes of society. That is, when you're a child, your parents are the proxy. You are the proxy of your parents, so you do not have full control of your autonomy as a child, nor do you have it in the eyes of the law. From a legal perspective, two different distinctions, but still. And so for me, in seeing his argument about, we license other activities that potentially cause harm to others, why don't we license parents? I was like, if we did license parents, we could potentially minimize the amount of, well, we could minimize the likelihood of harms befalling children at the hands of their parents due to maltreatment. And then as a result, we could positively impact the trajectory of someone's life, which means that we would then be amplifying their access to opportunity. So we would be equalizing their opportunity. And that's where I came up with this concept. It was a blended concept. And then I weaved in John Stuart Mill, who's another philosopher, his conceptualization of the harm principle, which is basically, it's a philosophical framework by which, in theory, society is only allowed to interfere with the autonomy of individuals if there are potential harms that could befall someone else as a result of that individual's activities. Meaning, if there's a possibility that I could harm you by doing something, in theory, society has the right to interfere with what I'm doing, because what I'm doing could potentially cause harm to others. Now, where the theory gets a little murky is, how do we define harm? How do we define intervention, right? Who do we define as society in terms of enforcement? How would this be enforced? There's a lot of gray area there, right? And then I also got into John Rawls and the veil of ignorance and his conceptualizations of justice. Again, we're getting very deep into philosophy, but these are the things that I love as a philosophy major. And that's where my passion has always been. I started diving into, of course, after college. So I graduated as a philosophy major, top of my class. I graduated magna cum laude. I graduated with distinction in the major by faculty vote, which is incredible. So I graduated with distinction in the major of philosophy by the Georgia State Philosophy Department's faculty voted and gave me that distinction. And then I also graduated, I graduated with the George W. Beswanger Award for the most distinguished philosophy major, which is incredible. And then I also graduated magna cum laude. So I just graduated with all the stuff. And I did graduate with, after my thesis, finished my thesis, got the sign off, won an award from Georgia State University for the best research paper or project for my thesis. And then as a result of my thesis and completing it, I also graduated with everything that I wanted, which was my honors, my advanced honors, and my research honors. So I graduated with all of the honors that were humanly possible at Georgia State University for a philosophy major, which I was so proud of, because again, it was just really, really hard for me. I didn't have any emotional or financial support. I worked 2 jobs to put myself through school, and it was really emotional for me being able to prove myself in that way, despite not having the support system that most of my peers had. And so after that, because one of the last things I did is I was working 2 jobs, I also had an internship. And then my internship was in technology, and that ended up turning into a full-time job, my first salaried position. I got an offer after I graduated, and that's what brought me into technology. And so throughout my time in technology, I have constantly been thinking about my thesis and parental licensing. It's been on my mind nonstop. It is like low-key kind of one of those things where it has become an obsession in a good way, because of what I went through growing up in a home that was full of physical and mental abuse. I truly feel as if this is my life's work, to dive into this and to bring this to the forefront of public policy, this conceptualization of a license for parents in order to prevent child maltreatment. And so I got my MBA following my from Brunel University. I was a part of the first MBA program that was all women in the United States of America. So that's another credential that I have. And then I have just been working and, gaining awards, a lot of different things from Silicon Valley and all different stuff, Global Tech Innovator Awards for technology. But my passion continues to be interdisciplinary, talking about ethics and also talking about technology. And so that's what I'm revisiting for my PhD. I want to really take this thesis and go the distance. I would like to not only have my dissertation be about parental licensing and dive into applied ethics, so not just like theoretical, hey, this is how it could work, but like, can I actually design an ethical way to do this to license parents? And on top of that, can I showcase that we could use AI as a model to predict the outcomes for families where the parental license intervention takes place? And so that is going to be hopefully a key component, I'll say, of my thesis is diving into that synergy between technology and philosophy from an ethical perspective, in terms of, is it feasible for us to intervene in the private sphere of the family in this manner? And if so, could you create an ethical way to do this by leveraging AI? So that's going to be hopefully a key component of what I do with my doctoral program. I am planning on applying to the Ivy League schools because that's always been my dream. I am still also finishing up another degree on the side from Cornell University, but I really, my dream of dreams is to get accepted into Harvard. And I'm kind of like getting emotional just talking about it, but if I were able to get my philosophy PhD from Harvard, I feel like the intellectual rigor that I would have access to, as well as just, really being in a place where I can explore these concepts with some of the brightest minds in the world it would be life-changing. It really would be. And of course, there are many universities that I plan to apply to that I love, that I'm researching. I also love Yale's program. There are so many. There are so many, but I'm planning on applying to about 20 PhD programs, and I'm starting my process. I have already started it, actually. I was accepted to Black in AI, which is a program that prepares African American students to apply to PhD programs focused on artificial intelligence. And so I'm really excited because I have this interdisciplinary approach with philosophy and AI, but we need this more than ever, because I can tell you, as an engineering executive, ethics is basically not even considered in most of these companies. And I've worked for some of the biggest tech firms around. I've worked for Spotify, E-Trade, Bank of New York Mellon, Fiserv, and nobody even talks about ethics. It's sad, really. Most of the products that you are using that are infused with AI there has not even been 1 second of somebody's time that has been spent thinking about the ethical ramifications of what they have designed and delivered to you as a user. And I want to change that. I feel that it is fundamentally doing humanity a disservice to not have ethicists be front and center in the new technological revolution that has been ongoing for the past decade in relation to the internet, Web3, chat GPT, and basically generative AI, all of our LLMs that we're using now. Like, why are there, like, we need ethicists involved in every single facet of the development process. I'm telling you, as someone who has worked in big tech for years, it is abhorrent that we do not have ethicists in every single decision. The same thing as in clinicians. They have ethicists in the hospitals talking them through the ethical ramifications of decisions around patients. We should have ethicists talking to engineers and engineering leaders at every single stage of the software development lifecycle. This is a hill that I will die on. And so I hope to start to lead that revolution as a philosopher. So I am a philosopher in terms of by being taught, but by trade, I am an engineer. And so what I want to do is bring philosophy, specifically ethics, back to the forefront of technology. And I hope to start to do that, and public policy. And I hope to start to do that through the pursuit of my, and eventually attainment of my doctoral degree, and then moving away from, I don't want to say moving away from academia, because I want to be a professor, but a part of my journey will be not only teaching as a professor, but also advocating and getting out into the public policy sector and the technology sector to really advocate for these ethical interventions that are absolutely necessary, in my opinion, in order to ensure that what we are building from a technological standpoint will actually benefit all of society, not just the 1% of society. And so that is a little bit about my educational background and what I'm hoping to get out of pursuing a PhD. And yes, I'm still working on my startups as well. Again, high achiever, this is what we do, we multitask. But I hope that you enjoyed this conversation. Please follow me on my journey. Right now, I am currently in the process of starting to work on my application packets, which means I'm basically working on my research statement, my statement of purpose, my personal statement, and then also starting to get together a list of who my letters of recommendation will come from. And then I also have to start creating an entire packet for my recommenders where they have access to all of the different materials, writing sample, all of that stuff that I have, because they'll need that in order to write me a letter of recommendation. And then I have to track all of the letters of recommendation that are coming in against my applications, and I have to submit applications. Most of my applications are due by the beginning of January. So this is kind of my crunch time from now, September, until December, to refine. For every single school, I have to do a different research statement, different statement of purpose, and personal statement, and then get my letters of recommendation and then submit my application. So it's going to be a tedious process because I'm applying to about 15 to 20 schools. But please follow me, Sydney and the City. And you can also follow me on my website, www.sydneymadisonprescott.com. And you can always find me on my podcast and on Substack. And also keep following the journey of my startups, Mirror Mirror and Adriatic Harvest. Mirror Mirror is a fashion tech startup powered with AI. And we're introducing the world's first AI fashion stylist, a mobile app, and eventually a smart mirror, which will be a floor-length mirror that will be AI-powered, that you can sit right in your home. And Adriatic Harvest, which is an agricultural startup where we are going to be building 3D printed wine barrels, 3D printed beehives, honeycombs that are going to have 3D printed flavor capsules, and so much more powered by AI. That is Adriatic Harvest. And I am Sydney Madison Prescott, the solo founder of Mirror Mirror and Adriatic Harvest, an award-winning philosopher, award-winning engineering executive, and future PhD candidate. Thanks so much for listening in, and can't wait to see you on the next podcast episode.